There's something mildly terrifying about pulling apart a perfectly good rear differential when you have absolutely no idea how to put it back together. So far, the Land Cruiser project has been a series of I'll figure it out moments, and that's worked. But this one felt different. Gears, shims, preload, backlash, tolerances measured in thousandths. One wrong move here and I've built a very expensive paperweight. So instead of pretending I knew what I was doing, I did something I'm not naturally wired to do. I called a friend who actually knows. This isn't a story about mastering a diff rebuild. It's about what happens when you decide that pride is more expensive than asking for help.
We got some parts to talk about. All right, we'll get to that box in a minute here, but I just wanted to run you through what these two things are because they're very important to our Land Cruiser build, and I'm so excited to finally be digging into them. This is the factory 80 series rear differential with the 410 gear ratio, and this is our Eaton E-locker that is going to be going inside this so that we have a locker in this differential. So if you don't know what a locker is, I will give you a lightning round of an explanation. When we're in an off-road situation and one of our driving wheels, this is the rear differential, so we're talking about the rear wheels. If one of those wheels loses traction and starts to spin, all of the power going to that rear differential will then be directed to that wheel that's freely spinning and doesn't have any traction. That's not optimal in an off-road situation. We want drive to be going to both wheels. The way to combat that and to force power equally, 50-50 to both wheels, to force them to spin no matter what, is by adding a locker. This locker that I have here is an E-locker, and we're going to wire a switch to our cab where we can effectively turn the switch on, engage the locker, force power 50-50 to both rear wheels, and then when we're out of the sticky situation, we can flick that switch off, disengage the rear locker, and now you have an open differential again. So if you're on dry pavement or if you're in a situation where you want those wheels to be turning freely, because most of the time you want those wheels to be able to turn at different speeds, because when you're going around a corner, the inside wheel turns at a different rate than the outside wheel. They're doing different revolutions, so you don't want to force them to spin at the exact same time, right? So it's going to be great to have a locker on demand where I can flick that switch in a tight situation, force both wheels to spin equally, and then disengage them. I'm going to have somebody help me and teach me how to install this locker because I've never done an install like this, and this install can get pretty complicated pretty quickly. But I have a friend who sets up these differentials all the time, so we're gonna take this stuff over to his garage.
Just making sure there's no burrs.
This is why mud sucks.
He's gonna teach us how to properly set up one of these differentials with the E-locker in it. Now I'll show you what I have in this box here. It's going to be some of the components that we need to replace in this differential when we tear it all apart. No affiliation with Rock Auto, but I do really like their website for ordering stuff like this because a lot of the times you can order the full kit instead of having to go and find each individual bearing and seal and crush washer. You can just, a lot of the times they just have a whole kit, like a differential rebuild kit or a wheel bearing replacement kit. Let's see what we got here. Ooh, we got a 200 series Land Cruiser magnet. Ah, look at that, fresh parts.
And you've done a few of these at Brave?
Hundreds.
Hundreds. been a while, so I might need to remind myself a little bit here. This is a significantly less elegant way to do this.
Before starting disassembly, we mark the ring gear with a yellow paint to show us the current tooth pattern. This will come in handy when it's time for reassembly, to know how deep the gear teeth were before disassembly. If the current pattern looks good, we'll want to try to recreate it during reassembly. Getting the tooth pattern right can be one of the most difficult parts of properly setting up a diff like this.
Okay, so we're basically just looking at how wide the sweep is. This one looks like it's actually a bit on the deep side because it's only on the tip of the tooth. Pull this one back. So you can just tell it's a used pattern, right? It does look a little bit too deep. Coast doesn't look terrible. So this is the other side. Usually when you let off the gas, you hear it whine. This is what you're going to hear. So this contact pattern is equally as important as the drive side. Well, this is where you apply your power. Right? We have like an imaginary center line through the middle of the tube here. So if we drew a line here, right, you can see that the majority of this pattern is actually too far in. We want, if a perfect world, this would be a nice long swipe that would be right over that center line, symmetrical, right? So too shallow would mean that we're touching and contacting out here. That means there's weakness on the tooth. So this is a little bit on the deep side. So you can see most of that contact is beneath that center line or to the inside of the gear. This doesn't look like horrendously ugly. I would say we just try and set it up the same as this in this instance and call it good. If there does tend to be noise or other issues, we're going to set the backlash the same or a little tighter, just kind of back to spec, make sure we're in Toyota spec, because this is a Toyota gear set, aftermarket gear set, Toyota gear set, they have different backlash specs. So we'll just set it up the same, see how it is, because you don't actually know.
Right.
After checking the pattern, we check to see what the current backlash is with a dial indicator. Backlash is the tiny amount of free play between the ring gear and pinion gear. You actually want a small gap between the gear teeth. If there were no gap, the gears would bind and the diff would destroy itself. So we want to check the current state of the backlash for reference and use the factory Toyota spec when all of this goes back together. Once we have all of our patterns and measurements taken, it's time for the full disassembly process.
Look at this nice clean diff and look at that disgusting seal. This is why mud sucks, is because now it's all gotten onto the inside of this dust boot. It's gotten to the inside of this seal. It's filled this with mud. You can see the grooves worn in by the seal because that's trapping dirt inside of it and it's wearing into your pinion flange surface, because this is what's required to keep oil into the system. And you can feel, like this does feel pretty rough. So the way to fix this is you can just set the seal a little bit deeper, meaning on this we're going to just offset the seal so it rides just a little bit here on a cleaner surface. If it's bad enough, you have to replace these. Typically if they're pitted, I would replace them because they tend to just wear the seal out again really fast. But you can see how this is all nicely gross. So if you were ever to go do a seal later, it's like one of those things that you can't really clean it. It's like you're trying to blast this. Look at the rust. Don't see that very often. It got water inside it, probably in through the threads on the pinion here, into the threads past the splines, and then you can see where it's all rusted. The bearing was rusted right onto that. So we're going to clean that up and see how well it cleans up, but that's not great. This is a bearing splitter. And what this is going to do is basically grab the back of the bearing race, and then we're going to put it in the press and push everything apart.
There's this idea that if you're going to do big things, you need to be the guy who knows everything, the solo builder, the self-taught expert. But standing here, watching someone who's done this 100 times, press bearings on and off pinion gears, I'm realizing that big projects aren't built on ego. They get built on borrowed experience. Knowledge compounds faster when you admit you don't have it yet. Here's a crazy thought. The smartest move in this whole build might not even be turning a wrench. It might be making the call and asking for help. And I have a feeling that by the time this whole project is done, I will need to have made a lot of calls.
Just making sure there's no burrs and no manufacturing defects. They're pretty good about it typically. This is kind of redundant. We rely on being perfectly flat, even a small amount of paper. So just clean off any sort of manufacturing residues, any sort of little burrs. Usually they're pretty good, but we don't want any height variance. We want this all to be concentric and flat and true to the center line here. Because if even a piece of paper, remember they showed us in school, if you even have a little piece of tape stuck on the side here, that'll cause enough run out in the gear where you'll basically get tight and loose spots in your backlash. So making sure this surface is perfect. I mean, you can do this with like a whetstone, it's the better way of doing it, but I'm basically just trying to make sure that this surface is as clean and true as possible. Get that honey drip.
A hole needs to be drilled in the side of the casing to allow for the electronic wiring to pass through.
It seems like it doesn't really do much, but this basically traps oil behind the back. Like if you come look inside, you can see the back of the roller bearings, and this covers the roller bearings. And as oil gets pumped up through this channel here to lubricate this bearing, because this bearing is quite often above the level of oil, or your level of oil might be here. Yeah. It gets pumped up by the ring gear through this channel into here, and as it pumps up, it holds it onto the back of the bearing so it doesn't drain away too quickly, and sometimes so it doesn't put pressure onto the actual backside of the seal, causing a leak.
We've run into a bit of a problem and need to get creative. We don't have the proper tool to hold the pinion flange while torquing the pinion nut to spec. Alex gets to work building a custom fork tool on the fly in order to get the nut torqued properly.
There. Now we have a counterhold tool. I'm truly about to get my chest workout for the month. Now it's starting to crush. Increases in torque are going to be like massive increases in preload, so it's like really touchy. Like I basically just wait to see it move and then spin it.
Final torque specs, backlashing adjustments, and pattern checks are complete. I'm starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel for this diff rebuild, and it looks like I'll have a pretty good setup when it's all done.
So we're kind of like on the toe on the coast, which isn't a big deal, and a little more on the heel on the drive. But that's okay. And this kind of looks the same as what we had before, maybe a little less deep. So I think we just go with this.
Rebuilding a differential is slow, technical, and occasionally frustrating work. It's a reminder that big things rarely happen because one person was fearless. They happen because someone was honest enough to say, I don't know how to do this. Will you show me? One day, this Land Cruiser will drive because of shared knowledge. And that's the bigger lesson here. If you want to build something bigger than you, make the call and let other people's experience become part of your story. I've found over the years that people love to share their personal experiences and knowledge. After all, sharing, teaching, and learning are all a huge part of the human experience. Thanks for watching this video. We hope you stick around for the rest of the build, and more importantly, the rest of the so many lessons that are still yet to be learned.